Zoning Hearing Board. My name is Bill Fitzpatrick, and I'll serve as chair for tonight's hearings. Other members of the board from my left, Jim Shantz, Mary Frances Stone, Terry Novotny, Linda Shea Gardner, and Peter Schneck. To my right is Attorney Terry Fall, who will serve as a board solicitor, providing legal advice. Further down the road here, to Terry's right is Craig Pfeiffer, the zoning officer for the city of Bethlehem. And at the extreme right of the podium is Jean Genova, who will serve as our court stenographer for tonight's hearings. The appeals are heard in the order listed on the agenda, and there should be agendas set out on the table right out here. Tonight, there are 4 appeals to be heard. As the appeal is announced, you have made the appeal or will be asked to come to the table to my right. Whether you're represented with an attorney or not, the court stenographer, Jean Genova, will swear you in along with anyone else in the audience wishing to either question or testify any of the hearings being heard tonight. So we're going to swear in everyone at one time. And I would remind you that your testimony will be considered as sworn testimony and will be included as part of the formal record of tonight's proceedings. Basically, the way things proceed is that the person or company making the appeal will present their appeal to the Zoning Hearing Board, after which time a question period will follow. And I will make sure that members of the audience wishing to ask questions will be given that opportunity. Only after all testimony and questions have been resolved will we open the floor for actual testimony from members of the audience. And we would ask you to avoid repetitive questions or testimony. Lastly, and very importantly, anyone aggrieved by the decision that the board makes tonight may appeal to either Lehigh or Northampton County Court within 30 days following the issuance of the written decision of the Zoning Hearing Board. And at this time, I'd like to swear in everyone who will either be testifying or would be thinking of asking a question. If everyone could please rise.
Raise your right hand, please. Do swear by mighty God, searcher of all hearts, that the testimony that you shall give in this proceeding should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and as you shall answer to God at the last great day. Do you so swear?
I do.
You may be seated.
Okay, thank you. And the first hearing that we'll consider tonight is that of 1039 Decatur Street.
Is this on?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Seems good.
While Mr. Villani's setting up the easel, the property was posted more than 2 weeks ago.
Thank you. And Mr. Villani, we would ask you if you go to the easel area, if you would take the other microphone with you when you go there. So having dispensed with that and that the posting it is in accordance with what we need, we'd ask you to proceed, Attorney Holsinger.
What I'd like to do is to call Mr. Pfeiffer, the zoning officer, as a cross-examination, if I may.
Absolutely.
Mr. Pfeiffer, you've been sworn. Would you please state your name and record, or for the name for the record, please?
Craig Donald Pfeiffer.
And you're the zoning officer for the city of Bethlehem?
I am.
And at the time of the filing of the application in this matter, did you and I have a discussion over the status of an unopened street adjoining the property?
We did.
And as a result of that conversation, did you have an opportunity to discuss the status of that unopened street with the city engineering department, the city solicitor's office, and the city clerk?
I did.
And can you describe to the board what was the result of that? Was this ever an open street or ever accepted for dedication?
None of the city departments were able to ascertain if the street was ever formally opened, dedicated, improved, or maintained. And therefore, the city has no objection to the site plan that is presented this evening.
And is it your understanding that where there's an offer of dedication and no acceptance, after a period of 21 years, that unopened street reverts half and half to the owner on each side?
Correct.
Okay. I have no further questions.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Attorney Fall, do we need any further clarification?
No, I believe that's fine.
Okay, then we can proceed.
I'd call Mr. Villani to testify. Mr. Valani, you've been sworn. Would you state your full name for the record, please?
Dominic A. Villani Jr.,
And your address?
709 Jennings Place, Bethlehem.
And are you a member of the 565 West Lehigh Partners?
Yes,
And is the LLC the legal owner of the property in question?
yes,
Do you recall when the LLC acquired it? Was it in November of 2019?
yes.
And do you remember the name of your seller?
Timothy Rippert.
Now, I'm going to ask if you would identify for the board what we're going to ask be marked applicants Exhibit 1. If you could identify that for the board, please.
This is an aerial photo showing Decatur Street, and I will point out, this is the said property right here.
And you've had some experience with properties in this neighborhood, is that correct?
Yes,
Is it my understanding you were involved with development approvals relating to property along Blake Street?
yes,
And at that time, is that how Mr. Rippert approached you about acquiring this property?
yes.
And when you acquired it, what was was there a home on the property?
There was a 1,500 square foot home that needed extensive renovations.
And after the LLC purchased it, did you undertake those renovations?
Yes,
And afterward, did you consider subdividing this property?
yes,
And what is this property zoned, RS?
RS.
And at that point in time, did we have a discussion about the ability to use one half the bed of the unopened street for purposes of setback and lot area?
Yes,
And when you considered development, who provided a development plan for you? What engineering firm?
Keystone Engineering.
I'm going to ask that our second exhibit be marked applicants Exhibit 2. And if you could, for the record, orient the board to where Decatur Street is, what the original lot size was, and now the reconfigured lot with half the bed of the unopened street.
Decatur Street is right here. The original lot was 17,300 square feet. The positioning of the house, the existing house, is closer to the side street, which is Norman Street, which is a public improved street, to the end of the property. So this property where the residual house will be 8,379 square feet, and the new lot will be 9,000 square feet.
And with respect to those two lot areas, and I'm going to call them Lot 6-2 and Lot 6-2A, do both of those meet all of the lot area requirements? Are they all over the minimum?
Yes, I believe NRS for single family is 8,000 square foot minimum requirement.
And with respect to the existing home on lots, what would be Lot 6-2, does it meet all of the setback requirements?
Yes, it does.
With respect to a home to be built on Lot 6-2A, can you meet all of the setback requirements?
Yes,
And can you describe for the board, we meet all of the lot area for both lots, we can meet all of the setbacks, front yard, side yard, rear yard. What specifically is our request this evening?
our request is because the existing house is, like I mentioned previously, is located closer to the side street, perpendicular to Decatur. That lot would be 70 feet. So we would be seeking a 5-foot width variance.
5-foot width for Lot 6-2A, but everything else satisfies.
Just for one of the lots, am I
Yeah,
correct?
Just for one of those.
Thank you very much.
Actually, just a correction, that would be for lot 6-2.
6-2, I'm sorry,
Right.
okay. I'm going to ask that a third exhibit be marked applicants 3, and if you can describe to the board what that depicts.
This is a house plan my draftsman prepared. It's a bi-level home. It's 4 bedrooms, 3 full baths. The reason I chose this type of home is for a few reasons. The area is very diverse. Towards the western side of Decatur, the home values increase, but as you go away from this property, the home values slightly decrease. So I thought that both myself and Tom thought this was a reasonable choice. This house would retail for about $310,000.
Now, did somebody suggest to you perhaps that you consider subdividing this into twin homes, and why did you decide against that?
Originally, we had the idea to subdivide this into twin homes. If I may go back, actually two houses over is a set of twin homes that were recently constructed within the last 2 years. That's on a 60-foot lot. Like Jim mentioned previously, I was involved with some development back here, and I got to really know the neighbors well. And they really had a lot of concern, like I mentioned, for these houses up here. So after a lot of heartfelt thought, both Tom and I thought it would be reasonable to not extend any type of more than a single dwelling beyond what's already here. So we feel what we're presenting tonight is reasonable, and we feel that it'll blend in the neighborhood well.
And with respect to this particular design and home,
Mm-hmm.
do you have any experience with that or family members? When you say this, you would mark
Yes.
it in the $310,000 range?
New homes in Bethlehem are Bethlehem's a very desirable area. The prices are escalating at a very high rate. A relative of mine just built this exact home in Bethlehem Township. He sold it before it was done. Both Tom and I have another lot on Eaton Avenue, 1605 Eaton Avenue, where we're building a single home. I'll mind you that didn't need any variances, but the same home, and we have the house some interest in it before it's even constructed, because it's a lot of home for the money. Where are you going to get a 4-bedroom home with 3 bathrooms, brand new with a 2-car garage for the low 3? So that's why we chose this home.
And as a developer in the city, do you feel this will have a positive impact on the neighborhood?
Absolutely.
And I understand that there's another issue with respect to the mouth of the unopened street, and if you can explain that to the board.
Okay. From the property line, which I'm pointing to here, there is a curb radius that is like a 15-foot radius that curls in here, and then actually curls in, defining the proposed road. What I propose to do, because I working on that house so much, we realize there's a water problem there. And what's happening is, because Decatur Street has been overlaid so many times and has a significant crown, because there is no curb there, water tends to erode the grass, and actually, once a heavy rain actually lays there. So what we're proposing to do with approval of this is to remove both radiuses, even our neighbors. And then what we would do is put a straight curb line in there, restore the line, which will restore the flow of water that heads eastward into the catch basin. In addition to the curb, we would put the sidewalk in as well.
And that sidewalk would span the entire width of the
Right, so pedestrians could walk Like right now, they're walking, they would walk here, step down, walk on the grass, or walk out in the street. What we'll do is eliminate those, like I said, so the sidewalk would be continuous.
And have you spoken to the neighbor to the west, Ada Ruiz,
Yes,
and she's aware of that proposal?
I brought it to her attention that we were doing this.
I have no further questions.
Thank you. Questions from members of the board?
What is the design of lot 6-2? The home that's on there, you said you rebuilt it?
Oh, yes, it is an existing, it was a 1950s colonial home, all brick. It's 15,000 square feet, give or take. It has 3 bedrooms. It had 1 bath. We renovated the whole home. We put new roof, brand new windows, new electric, new plumbing, HVAC. It's beautiful, but it's only 1,500 square feet. We did implement another half bath on the first floor. I apologize for not bringing
That's okay.
pictures of that, but that house we're actually listing for 259. Okay, this house will be, this one has a basement. This house here actually is 2,100 square feet, and like I mentioned, has 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms.
But will the design be significantly different?
This here?
Yes, compared to 6-2. You said it's a two-story
This
garage.
house, this house, ma'am, is was built in 1950.
So it's gonna be-
It's all brick. However, right across the street, directly across the street, if I may, these houses up here are larger ranch homes.
Mhm.
If you could see here, I pulled this off of Zillow very recently. So the median values here, you have 254, 260, 245. But as you get right across the street, you have 143, 180, 160. So we don't feel we want to overbuild it, but we feel this would be a reasonable plan for this site. Thank
Any
you.
other questions from members of the board?
You mentioned the runoff problems with the property. Where's the closest storm drain?
The closest storm drain is right here, about 20 feet west of the Edgewood Decatur Street intersection.
Does the natural flow of that street tend to run down towards that, or?
Yes, it is significantly pitched. Actually, from Huntington Street, there is a significant more grade sloping down to Henderson. And then once you get to Henderson Street, where these houses are facing, it kind of lessens, but it's still pitched. So all the water naturally comes down here.
Do you feel that the curb that you're proposing would be adequate to stop the problem that you'll have?
What it'll do 2 things. One, it'll prevent the erosion in the sitting water that after like a summer rain or a spring rain that just sits there. Number one. Number 2, it'll aid in streamlining this so there's not water bellowing out in the street.
The idea for your stormwater management, was that vetted by your engineer, or did you talk to the city engineer?
That's a good question. In Northampton County, if you disturb less than 10,000 square feet of disturbance, you do not need a stormwater management plan. However, what we do is, depending on which municipality it is, they may ask you to do a dry well or run your rain leaders off onto the ground. But for this type of project, it's not required because it doesn't break that 10,000 square foot threshold.
The next street down,
Mhm.
I don't know what street that is. The one in between where you're putting the curb and the stormwater basin.
This here?
Yeah. If you have a crown in your in Decatur Street,
Mhm.
is that going to push now the extra water down that street? Or are you saying that it doesn't go down that street? It's going to go,
Okay, I'll try to make myself a little more clear. From the west side of Decatur going eastward, it's pitched. There's significant flow. The problem you have here is because it's grass, the water is just running up. And what happens because the grass is raised, it soaks into the grass and actually bellows out into the street. Humbly speaking, I was in the concrete business for 20 some years. What curbing does is what the word means, it curbs it. It actually aids in directing the water flow. To answer your question, where it reaches Norman Street and Linford, where the crown comes down and these streets begin, there's what's called a meniscus there. So it's like a swale. So it will not affect that. It will not affect that because you have pitch going this way. All it will be, it'll be a swale.
so my fear would be that it would flood that intersection now that you're pushing all that water down. You're providing a path for that water to go.
Yeah, but the water, sir, is there already. All I'm doing is I'm preventing the water from flooding these people's yards.
Yeah.
But the water's there. I'm not creating any more. To build this building here, I'll give you an example. In another municipality, in townships, they're a little more stringent. And what they do, I do a lot of work in the borough of Nazareth. And what they do is they make us put what are called dry wells. And what a dry well is, an actual big pit where we actually put the rain leaders to carry the rainwater. And that prevents it. And as it fills up, it discharges at a slower pace. That's something the city may want us to do. They may not. Thank you.
And if I may, as a follow-up to that question, Mr. Villani, when this subdivision was laid out way back in the 1930s, is it safe to say that they also took into consideration stormwater management?
Yes.
And is it also quite probable that because Worthington was never open, where you would have had blacktop pitch coming out to the meniscus, what should have been a meniscus
Right.
there, that's what prevented the water from traveling west to east? So what you're doing is not creating a meniscus, but putting in curbing to access
Correct.
with the same effect.
Correct.
Thank you. Any other questions from members of the board? I'm sorry, Attorney Fall, you had a question?
One question.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Villani, will this matter be taken before the Planning Commission for subdivision approval?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Will they address the issues of stormwater at that time?
They will. Okay. Our engineer prepares a plan, and then if they feel there's a significant issue there, they will address it at the time. And that's why I took the necessary steps to foresee about putting the curb and sidewalk there.
Second question, unrelated to that, is there any reason why you could not continue to develop the property without putting the ability to put a second house on it?
I think it's an unusual lot. Number one. Number two is the house that we redid was, quite frankly, and I was trying to be polite in case the previous homeowner was here. I can't tell. But to be polite, the house was blighted. It was in extreme, terrible shape. I can look at you straight in the face and tell you we considered raising the house, but we decided not to. But we put a considerable amount of money in it, and the cost to rehab that, number one, posed a financial hardship on us, number one. And number two, we have this big lot here, and we feel we have almost a half-acre size lot. We feel that what we're doing is reasonable. And like I mentioned previously, Mr. Langle here, 2 doors down, put a duplex on a 60-foot wide lot right here, which is just 2 doors down. So he had a significantly amount less property and frontage than we do. And he put 2 houses rather than 1. We feel we're being more than reasonable.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you. I did want to clarify so everyone understands, we actually have 6 folks sitting up here. You should know that Ms. Stone is sitting in the capacity as an alternate member, participating fully in what's going on, but she will not be a voting member of the board tonight. And one last bite at the apple. Any final questions for Mr. Valani? Are there questions from members of the audience? Okay, if not, Mr. Holsinger, did
If I may, real quickly. What we're asking for is a 5-foot less width to one of 2 lots to be subdivided from this lot that's relatively large compared to the neighborhood. It's well-established law, Ron versus Estajac, which was a case in this city years ago, established this right about unopened streets and the ability to use it as land area and setbacks and so forth. The other thing about it is that, in my opinion, what controls density is really lot area, and we do meet all the lot areas, we do meet all the setbacks. I would submit to you that this 5 feet less of lot width is what we call a de minimis variance. It doesn't necessarily ask what's the hardship or whatever. It's asking this board to vary the terms of the ordinance by 5 feet, which is, in the overall scheme of things, is not a significant amount of lot width when you consider what the lot depth is and what the yard space would be for children and so on and so forth. This is very similar to a case I had probably within the last year before this board down on Ravenna Street, where we subdivided a lot to develop subdivided it into 2 lots. In each case, the lots were deeper than required, as these are here. And what the board did there was actually eliminated, I believe it was 10 feet on each side. And I have a copy of that decision, which I could give to Mr. Hall. But at that time, the board voted 4-0 to eliminate a 10-foot lot width for each side. I think what we're doing here, and as Mr. Valani said, in the condition of the home, it was in terrible condition. It's a modest home to begin with from back in the 50s that was never expanded upon. It probably makes more sense, in my opinion, to create a second lot. And then this will also act to further deter anybody from ever trying to assert any rights on the unopened Worthington. But again, my feeling is that it meets both the de minimis variance or, in the alternative, a hardship variance based upon the need to do the curbing and the sidewalk for the water. And I appreciate Mr. Fall's question, but it will have to go before the planners, and they'll review downstream water.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Is there anyone from the audience who wishes to testify in this matter? Seeing no one, Gene, we're going to go off the record and go outside in executive session.
I said, I think our other witness screwed this. You did a good job. You weren't uncomfortable with that. I did, didn't I? I thought at the end, but walking in, Harry was asking me a lot of questions about it. He said he agreed with it. He'll drop off 8 by 14. Tom, you're going to take hard copies down.
Great, thank you. Do you want to previous decision as A4?
I can give it to you.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was actually 5 feet, but for 2 lots.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Probably a good idea.
That's okay.
All right, Jane, I'd like to go back on the record, please.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to approve the appeal of 565 West Lehigh Street for the relief that they've
I'm
requested.
sorry, it's Decatur Street.
I'm sorry, Decatur Street, 1093 Decatur,
Okay. Thank you.
1039 Decatur. My apologies.
I'll second.
Mr. Shantz,
Yes.
Mr. Novatnik,
Yes.
Ms. Gardner,
Yes.
Mr. Schneck,
Yes.
Mr. Fitzpatrick.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, your appeal's been granted. Good luck
Thank you.
as you move forward. The next appeal to be heard is that of 124 to 128 West Union Boulevard. Attorney Piperato, good to see you. Can you tell us when the property was posted?
Property was posted on February 13th of 2020.
We're fine. Then would you proceed, please?
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, before we start with any of the evidence, I wanted to request from the board an amendment to
Can
the.
you?
Yes, sorry about that, Jane.
Okay.
I would like to request an amendment to the application if I may, and I do see that the notices published indicate not only the section of the required of the variance request, but also all associated variances, special exceptions, and interpretations. What I'd like to do is request an amendment to the application for a special exception pursuant to section 1319.02, B as in boy, parents 6, parents B as in boy, as well as section 131902, parents B as in boy, parents 5, closed parents.
Can you explain the nature of,
Yes, the request is made under the parking regulations and the special exception. The first provision regarding 1319.02B6B, as a special exception, the zoning hearing board may authorize a reduction in the number of off-street parking spaces required to be provided for a use if the applicant proves to the satisfaction of the zoning hearing board that a lesser number of spaces would be sufficient. Regarding the request for 1319.02B5, the ordinance provides as a special exception, the zoning hearing board is authorized to approve modifications to the off-street parking requirements for a lot if the applicant proves to the satisfaction of the zoning hearing board that such modifications are necessary to allow appropriate adaptive reuse of an existing principal non-residential building into a new approved use.
one moment.
My only concern is about the advertising. Mr. Piperato,
Yes, sir.
I'm a little concerned at the fact that the advertising does not specifically address the desire to address parking.
Yes,
Do you have any position on that?
I do. I believe there are a significant Pennsylvania case law that addresses the issue as to whether or not the amendment request is for a lesser burdened relief than that which is advertised. In this case, it was advertised for a variance, and the amendment is requesting special exceptions.
Okay.
So in my opinion, it does not require a re-advertising for the hearing.
I have no objection.
Then without objection from the board, the amendment is granted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. May I proceed?
Yes, sir, please.
Brandon, would you state your full name, please?
Sure. Brandon M. Benner.
And Brandon, you are a member of Matador Holdings LLC, is that correct?
Correct.
And Matador Holdings LLC is the sole member of an entity known as 124-128 West Union Boulevard LLC, is
Yeah.
that correct?
Yes.
And that entity then is the legal owner of the property known as 124-128 West Union Boulevard.
Yes.
And do you recollect when, and when I say you, I'll be referring to the landowner, when you purchased that property?
Roughly June of 2018.
Right. And subsequent to your purchase of that property, did you obtain certain approvals from the city of Bethlehem for a development?
Yes.
And would you explain to the board the approvals that you received and the development that you ultimately received approval for?
Yes, we converted the more or less vacant. It was a warehouse for Casilios used to park their concrete trucks on the second floor, and then it was being rented to more or less a chop shop on the first level. We purchased the property, and we received approvals to convert the property to 23 residential apartments.
Right. A portion of the property is located in the limited commercial zoning district. Is that correct?
Correct.
And also a portion of the property is in the RT residential district.
Correct.
Now, you indicated that you've received approvals previously from the city of Bethlehem for 23 apartment units. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And would you explain to the board the makeup in 1 and 2 bedroom units in that building?
Sure. We have 3 2-bedroom units, and then the remaining are all 1-bedroom units.
Right. So out of the 23 total units, 20 of them would be 1-bedroom units and 3 of them would be 2-bedroom units. Is that correct?
Correct.
And how large are the 1-bedroom units?
Roughly 600 to 720 square feet.
And at the time of receiving your approvals from the city of Bethlehem for the 23 unit building, were there certain parking requirements that you had to meet?
Yes. 1.75 per dwelling unit.
All right. And as a result of that, in rounding up, did that require you to produce 41 parking spaces?
Yes.
All right. Now, would you explain to the board how many parking spaces are located on site?
18.
And therefore, there was a difference of 23 spaces that you needed to make up in order to meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance. Is that correct?
Correct.
And how did you make up those 23 spots?
We rented 23 spaces from the Bethlehem Parking Authority at the, I believe it's the Old York lot.
Okay. And I believe the board is familiar with it, but maybe for the record purposes, the Old York lot is located adjacent across Union Boulevard from the subject property. Is that correct?
Correct.
And I believe it's a relatively, in the last couple of years, it's a relatively new lot, is it not?
Correct.
Do you know what the capacity of that lot is?
50, roughly 50 spaces, I believe.
All right. Now, when you indicated to the board that you obtained 23 parking spaces from the Bethlehem Parking Authority at the Old York lot, explain that. Did you have to enter into a lease agreement with the Bethlehem Parking Authority?
Yes.
And you're currently leasing 23 spots?
Yes.
Are the 23 units at the property fully occupied at this time?
Yes.
And when somebody rents a unit at that facility, for the 18 spots that are on site, how are they assigned?
Every unit has a designated parking spot.
And that is in your 18 space lot, is that correct?
Correct.
Right. And what happens when there are vehicles greater than 18 lots associated with the 23 units?
We have obviously from the 23 spaces across the street, we designate them parking space across the street. There's a lease that's signed and we have all the vehicle information, make and model of the car, the tenant, and that's pretty much it.
When did you first obtain certificates of occupancy for the units?
Mid-February of last year.
Right. And Mr. Benner, was the reason why during the original approval process that you did not request zoning relief from the parking requirements of the ordinance?
Well, we wanted to make sure we had enough parking for for all of our tenants. And also, we thought it was not only the right thing for tenants, but also for the neighborhood. We didn't want to have any kind of overflow that it would interfere with businesses or other residential properties down there.
All right. Now, you indicated to the board that the 23 units are fully occupied.
Correct.
In addition to the 18 spaces on site, how many of the 23 spots that you lease from the Bethlehem Parking Authority are utilized?
Right now, it's a little less than 8, but the max was 8 spaces out of the 23.
Right.
Over the course of the year.
And so essentially, you've been paying at a minimum for 15 additional parking spaces, in some instances more, depending
Correct.
upon the availability at the Old York lot. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Now, I believe you spoke to Mr. Stephen Fernstrom, Fernstrom, Stephen from the Bethlehem Parking Authority.
Yes.
And I want to show you, Mr. Benderwalla Marcus, Applicant's Exhibit 1, a letter dated January 3rd from Mr. Fernstrom concerning the current situation at the Old York lot. And with the board's indulgence, please. Okay. May I approach?
Yes, please. Okay, thank you.
Now, Brandon, I'll direct your attention to applicant's exhibit number 1, and that is a letter dated January 3rd of 2020 from Mr. Fernstrom. Is that correct?
Correct.
Right. And in the letter, and I'll paraphrase, he's indicated that in excluding your lease spaces, there are currently 7 monthly permits sold in the lot out of a total of 50 spaces. And so I'm assuming that with your 8 lease spaces and the 7 other monthly permits, there are only 15 spots that have been leased monthly out of the 50 in the Old York lot. Is that your understanding by the letter?
That is my understanding.
Right. I believe at the end of the first paragraph, he also indicates that the current average transient transactions per day is 4.
Correct.
Which would essentially be, take us to about 19 spots out of the total of 50. Is that correct?
Correct.
Right. If you will, it might be easier for you to do this. Would you read into the record the second paragraph of that letter?
Sure. Based on the current level of activity at the Old York lot, the Bethlehem Parking Authority believes there will be no issue with the bungalow tenants obtaining a space directly from the BPA. Furthermore, many of the surrounding streets are residential parking permit zones that would prevent on-street parking abuse if they are not required through a lease to pay for parking off-street.
Okay. And essentially, he goes on to say that the Bethlehem Parking Authority has no objections to terminating the Matador holding lease for the 23 spaces. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Now, you mentioned in your testimony to the board that currently when a tenant leases one of your units, you determine, well, first of all, that tenant must disclose whether or not they have any vehicles that they are going to be utilizing at the unit. Is that correct?
Correct.
And would you indicate to the board again the information that you receive from each tenant?
Yes, we have the name, the apartment number, their telephone number, the make and model of their car, their license plate.
And I'm showing you a document that we've marked collectively, and I believe these are the 8 leases that you testified to
Correct.
previously, correct? The 8
Yep.
tenants that actually you have leases at the Bethlehem Parking
Correct.
Authority. And we have marked them collectively as A2. Provide that copies to the board just so the board can see and have an example of the type of parking lease
Thank you.
that the landlord is trying to say. And so essentially, the request tonight is not necessarily that you not be required to provide parking spaces, but that that the parking spaces be obtained in the event that tenants who replace existing tenants would require more spaces. Is that right?
Correct.
So essentially, what you're asking the board to say or to do this evening is to grant the variance or special exception with the understanding that each and every tenant that applies for housing at your facility, in the event that they disclose that they have a motor vehicle, that either an on-site or off-site spot be available to them.
Correct.
And you're prepared to do that.
Correct.
Now, when your entity purchased this property, I believe you indicated that it was it an old warehouse?
It was.
All right. And you can consider what you've done since then to be an adaptive reuse of that principal non-residential building.
Correct.
And have you reused it into a new approved use, that being residential apartments?
Yes.
Section 1319.02B only applies in the event that there is an alteration of a structure or a change or extension of a use. Would you agree that the change from the previous use to the existing use was in fact a change of use which increases the parking requirements under the ordinance?
Right.
So the parking requirements under the ordinance for the residential apartment use is greater than the parking requirements of what was previously there.
Correct.
And are you prepared to indicate to the board this evening that in the event additional parking spaces were required for additional tenants, that they would be required to obtain a parking space directly with the Bethlehem Parking Authority for the old York lot? Okay. That's all I have for Mr. Bennett.
Can I ask for one clarification on the last point? The tenant is actually securing the space?
That is correct.
And do they provide evidence to you that that space has actually been leased?
Yes.
They do. Okay. Questions from members of the board?
I just have one clarification.
Yes.
Currently, we're leasing 23. We still want to lease 10. So the max we've had over the max leases that we've actually used in the old York lot are 8 spaces. So just as a security blanket, we want an extra 2, so 10 spaces. So reducing it from 23 to 13. I mean, from 23 to 10.
Okay. Ms. Shea
But
Gardner.
with the condition and understanding that if it requires more than 10, no matter what that number is, that those additional spaces will be acquired.
Right.
And the tenant will be obligated to acquire them and provide written proof of a lease with the Bethlehem Parking Authority to the landlord.
Thank you. Ms. Shea Gardner.
Across the street, on the other side of Union Boulevard, is that residential permit parking or is that just open parking by the high rise?
We're not in that lot. We're in the, it's across the street from the old Moravian house.
No, I'm asking about the on-street parking on the other side of Union Boulevard. So-
Attorney Gardner, I think it is permit. And the only reason why I know is that according to Mr. Fernstrom's letter, he doesn't specifically say that. He says many of the surrounding streets are residential parking permit zones that would prevent on-street parking abuse if they are not required through a lease to pay for parking off-street.
Right, that was why I asked the question, because I'm not certain that that actually is residential permit, because my experience in the last year is that has really filled up every day along there. So I wasn't sure whether it was permit that's moving in and out or not.
I'm sorry, I don't know.
Any other questions from members of the board?
So you'll have essentially 28 parking spots,
That is correct.
right? And that would allow for some of the tenants to have 2 vehicles, obviously.
Yes.
So do you allow tenants to have, multiple vehicles?
For the 2 bedrooms, we provide 2 parking spaces. And the size of the 1-bedroom apartments, there's been two 1-bedroom apartments that have 2 people living in them. They're primarily leased by 1 person.
So if you have all of the parking spots taken by tenants and you have another tenant that comes in and needs 2 parking, or I guess 1 additional parking spot, because I assume every tenant is guaranteed 1 parking spot.
Correct.
Okay, so you would then require that tenant to go to the parking authority to get a spot either on the lot or someplace.
Correct. And then we would coordinate with that to make sure we have all the documentation for that, for the resident, the apartment number, all the parking lot lease, basically.
Okay.
Any other questions from members of the board? Seeing none other questions from members of the audience? Okay, Attorney Piparato, additional testimony or closing?
No, just very brief. I wanted to mention that when I talked to Brandon and Garrett about it, the great news was that they were able to look at the historical perspective of this building, at least for a year. I know that's not a 5-year period of time, but it's at least a year. And I commend them for not coming before the zoning hearing board, the initial application when they converted the building, because we would not have known what the demand was going to be for the 1-bedroom units based on the size of the units, et cetera. But in that, the 23 units are all occupied. They've been occupied for a year now. I believe at least we've been able to provide you tonight with a good amount of evidence to indicate that we believe that the 10 spots will be adequate, but we're also prepared to make arrangements to ensure that any additional cars that are going to be at the facility will have a spot in the parking lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Mr. Piperata, in reading these special exceptions, specifically 1319.02B6E.
E?
Yes.
Okay.
It talks about such reservation shall be in form acceptable that binds current and future owners of the land. A deed restriction is recommended. Says the board may require the reservation for a certain number of years or an indefinite period corresponding to the years the buildings are in use. Do you have any proposal in that regard?
Reserve the area for. Well, where did you see, Terry, I'm sorry, where did you see that it be in the form of a deed restriction?
At the end of I, under E.
Okay.
Last sentence.
I believe that, I believe that the reservation, I think the proof could be that the residential lease agreement for each unit specifically be conditioned upon the entry into a lease with the Bethlehem Parking Authority if necessary, and maybe that lease be lodged with the city of Bethlehem in the property file.
The only reason I raise this issue is because obviously the city currently is using this as parking. They want it for parking for development. If the city ceases to use this area for parking, allows it for development, what proposal would you have to protect that there be sufficient parking for your client's use?
My clients would be required to come back and seek additional relief from the zoning hearing board because there would not be any other parking available. I mean, the original approval was based on the fact that the lot was available in close proximity to the apartment building. And so if you're suggesting that that lot may no longer be available because the city of Bethlehem no longer owns it, that doesn't change the fact that there's only 18 parking spaces on site. So whether it's at the old York lot or some other lot, they're going to be required to obtain those spots.
The only reason I raise this because the prior decisions did not address the parking.
Okay. I'm sorry, Terry.
Sure.
Brandon was just mentioning to me that they have like 3 5-year extensions on the Bethlehem Parking Authority lot. So I don't think there's any intention for the city to no longer own that lot.
I fully agree with you. I'm just looking at what
I
the
understand.
specific ordinance statements are.
I'm sorry. So I missed your last point, Terry. You would.
I said, I do not know that the prior decision addressed the parking requirement. So that's the only reason I was raising this.
Well, we have never been before the board before seeking relief for the parking requirements because they.
I understand, but it would have been in your prior. The way I read the ordinance, it should probably have been 2 spaces per unit if you're using off-street parking. That wasn't done. I'm not raising that as an objection now. I'm just saying that was not presented at the time, so that's why I'm just.
Well, during the approval process, it was 1.75 spaces for a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment. That came out to 41 spaces. That's why they were required to enter into a lease agreement for the 23 from the authority.
I'm just saying a reading of the ordinance does not read that way. That's all. So.
And you're looking specifically in the residential parking requirements?
Correct. Basically what you're proposing or what you're seeking is you have a current space lease agreement dated January 25, 2019. You would propose to modify that to reduce the number of spaces from 23 to 13
23 to 10.
to 10. I'm sorry,
Yes.
you're right. 23 to 10. So you're removing 13 spaces from that lease.
That is the proposal, yes.
Okay, thank you.
The request, excuse me.
Okay. And to make sure I'm not remiss, was there anyone in the audience wishing to testify on this matter? Okay, Gene, we will go off the record and go out in executive session,
Yeah, thank you.
hopefully just briefly. Yeah. I don't know. Sean has that gleam in his eye today. I don't know.
City used one. Sure. I don't know if they'll give us 10, maybe they'll give us till 13 or 14. Let's hope it doesn't happen. Just that instead of you. Parking authority saying, they got their own parking authority saying that, hey, you don't need this, you don't need the spaces. So I'm comfortable with that representation. Now Linda's, Linda's. I know it. I think it's the employees. I think it's the employees. For visitors. Yeah, I just think it's always, that side across from your building is always jammed. There's never an available. Gene, how are you?
Great, how are you?
Everybody doing well?
How about your guys?
Everybody doing okay? Well, I thought you'd be retired by now.
I'm trying.
What do you mean you're trying? You're not trying hard enough.
Yeah, I am.
You think, but yeah,
We go.
huh? Hard to go. You do that. You did. Good for you. Just a new administration. Benefits are big. Because your husband doesn't get them right. Yeah, I'm going through the same damn thing. I'm tired. I'm getting real tired. Yeah. I just, I'm moving my office downtown. Looking at like 4 different spaces now. I live down here. I figure my wife says to me, you won't go anywhere. I said, that's the point. looking at three right behind was Larkin bought that real nice. They built that building, the old one that's, big in the poke, where Twisted Olive is, the big old concrete building. I think someday they're going to make it really. Larkin is a well-known company, so I'm looking at some space in there, and then loose space up at where Jim is, up at Bosco's office. Second floor looks over at Billy's. I can go over there every day and hang out. I looked at 60 West and the other big ones, but I can't find anything to buy. I mean, there's small half a doubles here and there, but there's no parking. I don't want to. That's a good point. That's why I keep telling my staff that I don't want to buy. But parking is always an issue, so I'm going to end up with 3 or 4 spots. No matter where I go, I have to have my spot. I have to pay $70 times 4, so you have to add that into the rent. Your staff places to park. But the good news is the authority told me to still validate. So if I have settlements, we do. Oh my God, we do so many settlements. It's amazing with my title company. So I need 8 to 10 spaces. Where people going to park. So that's becoming an issue. But yeah, I'm just trying to simplify it. But cost here is higher than what the hell it is in Bartolacci's building. I'm on Courtney Street, right off of Highland in Hanover. So I figured it might be cheaper to come down here. And Rick's got 2 of them. He's got the 2 of them. One where his JBN is, and next to that. And then he's got that pink one with the pink glass down on Broadhead Road. He's got like 4 or 5 of them in there. Going forward, they just one daughter couldn't get everything she found. Pregnant, and he just had his first grandchild. But it's chilled him out a little bit. That's why I want. One of the reasons why I want to retire. That's good. Ronnie Del Cero, all the rest of them. It was wonderful to deal with. Ronnie's father was great. Crazy, but he was great to deal with. Yeah, I know. Changed everything, Because now it's a completely different game. It was good seeing him.
No, Craig, you keep getting me further over toward this door. Get me sitting in the elevator one of these nights.
Borrow that, please? Yes, you can. Sorry.
You're good. Gene, I'd like to go back on the record, please.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to approve as a special exception the request made by 124, 128 West Union Boulevard, and 114 West Bruce Street to reduce the minimum number of parking spots of off-street parking from 23 that they're renting from the parking authority down to the 10 as they requested as part of their testimony.
I'll second.
Mr. Shantz,
Yes.
Mr. Novatnik,
Yes.
Ms. Gardner,
Yes.
Mr. Schneck,
Yes.
Mr. Fitzpatrick.
Yes.
Thank you for your time.
Good luck
Thank
as
you.
you proceed.
Appreciate it.
Piece that you have on the,
Yes. On
the
amendment.
advertising.
Yes, I will. Thank you, Terry.
Thanks.
Jim, are you stepping down at this
Yes.
point? All right.
I'll make the announcement then.
I would like to make note of the fact that Mr. Shantz will now be stepping down from the podium for the remainder of the night. And Ms. Mary Frances Stone will now assume the role as a full voting member and participant in the proceedings. Next hearing is that of 1002 Linden Street.
Hello.
Hello. Can you tell us when the property was posted, please?
3 weeks ago, 122,
Can I have your name, please?
Harry Lomping,
Spell it.
Lomping.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is James Morrison. I was asked to come here on behalf of the club tonight to speak for the club, the Jefferson Democratic Club.
Okay. Would you proceed with I'm sorry. All right, and I hope we're not too late on this, but we do have sign-in sheets on the table. So if you're interested in any of the proceedings tonight, we would ask you to sign on the appropriate sheet. Okay, would you proceed, please?
Sure. We're proposing to construct a concrete patio for a designated smoking area for the club, which would be outside, which would alleviate the smoking within the club. And if any of you have ever been in a private club here in Bethlehem, such as the Jefferson Democratic Club, you know how smoky these clubs get. So we think that would greatly reduce the amount of smoke within the club. Where we're proposing to put the patio itself is towards the back of the side parking lot on the property, which will encroach upon the rear setback. Now, if you look at that, where the existing building is now that the patio would be connected to, the building itself right now is only within 5 feet of the property line. We're staying within the end of the building, so we're not even, we're not even as far back as the building is now. So I think that should be taken into consideration also. One of the reasons we're keeping it towards the back of the parking lot is to keep it as far away from the street and the sidewalk as possible. Since it is, people will be smoking there, keep it away from the general public. And that's basically what we're asking for, that you give us relief from that rear setback.
I believe you're also asking for relief on the off-street parking spaces. Can you address that, please?
I can. And that lends to another fact of where we're putting the patio itself, because where we're putting it significantly has the least amount of impact on the amount of spaces we're going to lose by putting it where we're putting it. And we've talked to the people next door that own the repair garage, and I believe that is lot 19, and they have given us permission to use that as overflow parking. Now, we're only losing 2 spots. We can fit, 3 or 4 cars over there when we need to. In addition to that, it's very seldom that lot is ever full, with cars. It doesn't happen often. Maybe on a big sports day or something, Super Bowl or something, when it gets crowded in there, yes, it gets filled up. But other than that, it's very rarely full anyway. In addition to that, there is street parking all around the club in that neighborhood.
Okay. Questions from members of the board?
So I'm looking at the photograph, the colored photograph, which shows, I think, the repair garage on the left and the club on the right, and then the parking lot.
I'm sorry, what was it?
It's
Yes, the garage is on the left, the club is on the right.
Right, yeah, the color photograph, the Google photograph. So the patio would be to the rear of the lot?
Yes.
Okay.
Gene, are you keeping track of who's answering, or does that create a problem for you?
I know who it is.
You're okay?
So it's just going to be a concrete patio you're going to lay within the parking lot?
Well, it'll have to be raised approximately 5 feet above the lot because we want it to match the floor level inside the building. And so therefore, there will be a privacy railing / fence around it. We'll need that by code anyway, so nobody can fall off, which will at the same time provide privacy for people sitting on a patio and for people in the street looking in.
Okay, so it's going to be concrete patio, not a deck.
Correct. It'll be a concrete foundation wall, poured concrete with a concrete pad on top.
Okay. One of my concerns, or the reason for my question, was if it was going to be at the parking lot level, what kind of protection would you have in place to,
Correct.
in case somebody
You wouldn't
came
be
out
able to
and,
get hit
you
by
know,
a car.
exactly.
Will there be some seating provided on the patio?
Yes, we're planning on putting tables with like chairs right around them so that people can sit out there.
And no overhang protection?
No roof.
Okay.
Do you ever intend to put a roof or enclose it?
Not at this time. It doesn't work out.
Are people still going to be able to smoke inside, or will you just have it limited to the outside?
No, people will still be able to smoke inside until we really look at the laws, the way they're going to change with Pennsylvania, with the vaping. And then, you know, once it goes to that and it goes to cigarettes and cigars and all that stuff, we kind of want to be, and, you know, tell you the truth, it does get smoky. So we want people to be able to go out there and alleviate from all that smoke inside the building. And in the future, it would be just for smoking outside once the law changes.
May I ask?
Yes, sir, please.
These are some technical questions. Who is the owner of the property?
The owner would be the club itself.
Is it the Jefferson Democratic Club? What is that, the name of it?
Yes, it is the name of it.
Okay. And what is your position with the club, Mr. Willenpont?
I am director and house chairman.
Okay. And Mr. Morrison, are you a member of the club?
I'm an active member of the club. correct?
Okay. And the board authorized you to speak here this evening? Okay.
Yeah, it's actually in the application, Terry.
Okay. And inside, what is the square foot floor area of the largest room?
1,514.
So that would require then that you had, if I do my math really quickly here, I'm in trouble, 30 spaces? And how many spaces do you have?
15.
And how long, do you know when the club was established?
Sometime in 1930.
Okay. Do you know if zoning was in effect at that time?
I believe not.
Thank you.
Probably wasn't
And
even
actually, I
intended,
would not know.
And so your request is to reduce the number of spaces from 15 to 12
It's actually 15 to 13.
to 13.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. That's different than what we have here.
Right. And your agreement with the adjoining property, who is the owner of that property?
Well, you know what? I don't know her full name. It's Countryside Automotive.
Do you have any written agreement with them?
No, what happened there was I went over yesterday and asked her about it, and she said there was no problem. We already been able to park in their lot. So I asked her for something written, and I went back today and it was not there.
Okay. If the board were to make that a written agreement a condition of your approval, is it something you feel you could obtain?
I absolutely can bring that, yes.
I have no additional
Okay.
questions.
Any questions from members of the board? Questions from members of the audience? Yeah, come on up, Mr. Deschler.
Matthew Deschler, 313 East Frankfurt Street. You actually see the sidewalk of my house on one of the blocks. I've never had any problems with the club, none at all. And I'm heartened that you're going to agree to, as a condition for approval, to get something in writing from Countrywide about those additional spots. The only question I had, I seen the documentation. You're looking to keep us open to 10 p.m. Is that the case? The outside facility?
I would say not every single day. You know, once in a while, yes, it would be.
Okay. How often would you say?
Well, a percentage of that, I would say 20%.
Okay. And I think you anticipate this being open on a seasonal basis?
Yes.
How would you define the season?
Well, the seasons would be, we definitely don't want anybody going out there if there's snow or anything like that, and with not having a roof on if it's raining or anything like that. So the season's definitely in the summertime. the fall, spring, summer, or yeah, but not winter.
It's I really don't want to object to what you're trying to do here, because again, I think you're a responsible business. Just from where I live, I can hear everything. You have that kind of chute that goes out from the bar into the parking lot where there's like a recycling bin, and I can even hear the cans ping from my bedroom. So sound does carry. Are you dead set on that 10 p.m. Window to keeping it open?
You know what? Can I answer about the glasses in the bin?
Sure.
Okay. We eliminated that because we moved that dumpster to inside an area where it's more encased, because we own the house next to it, and then on, and we do know that was a definite problem. And what happened was, instead of they used to take all the beer bottles out in big buckets and dump that, and that would happen at like 5 a.m. and stuff. It was terrible. So we actually put a bottle chute in now, that the bottles come right out of the side of the building into the dumpster, much more, that you don't hear it near as much.
You're probably right. I don't recognize it as much anymore. Just the sound does carry, and I was just wondering if you can, if it might be possible to back up the window that it's open to 9:30, maybe.
Sure.
Okay. I'd appreciate.
And I just
that.
really think that we just moved that dumpster. It couldn't have even been 2 months ago.
Okay.
So I would, and the garbage men are the garbage men, and that's another thing, when they're dumping the glass into the back of the garbage truck, you don't hear that anymore either, because it's way up.
Like I said, I think you're a responsible property owner. It's just, again, the sound carries in that area, especially from where I am. And if you could.
And what was your address? Where are you at?
313 East Frankfurt. I'm across from the automobile repair shop. I can look from my bedroom window right into
You're
the
in the
parking
alley,
lot.
right?
Oh, you're in the alley?
Well, it's not technically an alley, but it's the street that's perpendicular to Linden Street. Yeah.
Excuse me. Okay.
Okay. I'd appreciate that.
We're just trying. This is something very new to us, so we're just trying to, maybe after it's done, we can relook at it again too, about the timing.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions from members of the audience?
Well, to address Mr. Dessler's concern, could there be some type of sound barrier?
Well, we feel that the privacy fence we're going to go up is really going to keep it, keep the noise down.
So you are going to put something
Right.
around it? Okay. Nothing else.
Okay. Anything else from members of the board? Having no other questions from members of the audience, is there anyone in the audience wishing to introduce testimony on this matter? Gentlemen, do you have any final remarks that you'd like to make about this? Okay, Mr. Lomping, we were talking about the hours. Does 9:30 seem reasonable, or did you want to back it up to even 9? I have no idea what you really need to operate this reasonably.
The thing, in my opinion, in the summertime, it doesn't get dark until 9 o'clock at night, and that, I would just think that's why we had the 10 instead of 11. So.
But are you agreeable to 9:30?
Yes.
You are. Okay. Anything else, gentlemen?
No.
All right, Gene, I'd like to go off the record then. We need to go out, guys?
No.
No.
Yeah.
Why don't you come down?
Do you have any objection? The 9:30. It's at 8 a.m.
What's it? They actually had 8 a.m.
So 9:30.
you want to do anything about the joint agreement?
Yes. And we want the written agreement.
With the neighbor parking.
Yep.
How long? For 2 spaces? That's all there was. What was the name of the neighbor? Say minimum.
What was the name of the
Minimum
address?
time period. That's a year to year. Okay. Spaces, minimum spaces for a minimum year to year.
Good to go? All right, Gene, I'd like to go back on the record, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to approve the request of the Jefferson Democratic Club with the following conditions. Number one, that the owners provide written proof of a lease with the adjoining parking area or another space in the area of at least 2 spaces. So you have to have 2 spaces to come back up to 15, and that you close the outside patio at 9:30 p.m.
May I ask as a clarification on the either lease or written agreement that it be on a year-to-year basis?
Right.
There doesn't have any be a monetary thing or anything, right? It's just got to be.
No, as long
written.
as you have a written agreement to provide the
Okay.
parking.
That's up to the adjoining property owner, whatever agreement they want to reach.
Yeah, we can't tell you for free. And then
No, I don't know,
Yeah. If they get mad about it, I'll refer you to one of these guys. Do we have a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Ms. Stone, Mr. Novatnik,
Yes.
Ms. Gardner,
Yes.
Mr. Schneck,
Yes.
Mr. Fitzpatrick.
Yes.
Thank you.
Your appeal's been approved, so good luck with the project. You probably want to wait for the written decision so that you're perfectly legal with this, but good luck with the project.
Yeah, just in that point, please understand that Mr. Deshler was here objecting. Obviously, he didn't raise a strong objection, but he has the right to file an appeal within 30 days after the written decision. And if you act before then, you're acting at your own risk, just so you're aware of that.
Okay.
If you have, I understand though that if you have a trivia contest going, you should invite him.
I'm also curious about your email address. Is it corkscrew?
Everybody calls me Corky.
Oh, okay. I thought, because you're managing a club, I thought maybe it was corkscrew.
How soon do you want the agreement to the other property? That letter.
It'd be a condition of your being able to get a permit to do the work.
Okay. All right. And then the last hearing for this evening is that of 730 East Morton Street. Please come up. Have you been sworn in?
Yeah, in the beginning, right?
You were, yes. Okay. Can you tell us when the property was posted?
February 18th.
Okay, the floor is all yours.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Jay Floyd. I am a member of Clan Homes LLC, which owns 730 East Morton Street. The current setup is a 3 to 4 garage, large garage, and on the first floor. And the second floor is a 2-bedroom unit that I rent to one family. There is a lot to be improved, can be improved in this particular property. If you would look at the picture of the building, this 2-bedroom, one can park, say, to be conservative, 10 cars on the parking lot on the front, and then another 3 garage. Therefore, I think it would be making a lot of sense that if I could convert the existing, floor level garage into a dwelling, 2-bedroom. with close to 1,000 square feet, and keep the second floor as two-bedroom. Even I would do that, I can still provide 2 to 4 parking spot for each unit. I do ask the variance. The minimum lot width would be 60 feet. Mine is only 40, but the neighborhood, they're all 20. So if I would change that, the width of the lot would still comply with the neighborhood. By improving the property, I would actually bring the value to the neighborhood and providing more rental units or affordable housing.
Mr. Pfeiffer, as a clarification, based on the relief requested, is there any relief needed for parking?
There's not.
There's not. Thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Oh, I have to say more. If I would be able to convert this into 2 units, I actually will be able to correct the existing situation. This lot, the front lot, the house is way set back. Therefore, you're generating a large parking lot, a large space, which could or may encourage activities that I do not know or may happen. But if you have more people living into 2 units, I think it will actually make a lot more sense.
Is there anything else?
No.
Can you, on the photo, the black and white photo you gave us that shows 4 cars in front of a house, is that the rear of the,
That's the front.
that's the front?
Yes.
And that's set pretty far back then from Morton Street.
That is the Morton Street. That is the front. The Morton Street, I believe, it's landlocked. The back, there's just nothing.
Can you describe that? What are the cars parked on? Are they parked on your driveway? Or is that Morton Street itself that you're saying it dead ends there? Or?
Morton Street starts there. Starts at the at here. I mean, not start. I mean, yes, that you can say that's driveway. Yes.
Okay. Questions from members of the board?
What are the buildings to the left and to the right in your photograph?
To the right are residentials, the row homes, a bunch of them. I believe they're occupied, not owned by me. On the left, it's a rundown garage. It's not a residence.
Are there any, do you know of any other multifamily homes that are in close proximity to you?
I do think there are 2 units on the Morton Street, but I cannot give you the number right now, right in my head. But I did see for sale a few time back.
On the left side of the photo, what is that? What kind of building is that?
It's a 1-level, single level garage type of building. It's just like a warehouse look like.
Are those garage doors there?
No, I would say more like garage. not, the garage door on the front, I would see, yes, I would say yes.
So when I'm looking at this, I'm seeing like 3 garage doors?
Oh, no, those are not garage doors. You mean this door?
Yes.
No, those are bricks.
Okay.
And the other side is the front of that building, am I correct?
You mean this side?
Yeah, what are we looking at, the front or the back of that building?
You're looking at the front of the building.
This is the front of the building.
This is the front of the building.
What is
Okay.
it? The side of the building? Like, does the front of the building face Morton Street?
Yes, yes. This is the front of the building. It's very set back. Yes.
Oh, the front of your building is in the photo.
Yes.
The building to the left, that's the side wall of that building.
Yes, yes.
Can you talk to us on these, which one is your building?
The one says 41. Well, which one are you looking at?
Looks like this. It was in your packet.
30, I think.
It looks like a whole description of lots,
I know, sorry. Let me,
and it shows Morton Street right down the middle.
mine would be on the left side, says 728. 728. 40D.
Oh, okay. When you, looking at the map, is it 6A and 7A are the lots that you own?
Yes, 6, 7, yes.
Thank you. That's why I couldn't quite figure out.
Lots 6 and 7 behind your property. What is on that?
Oh, okay. Yeah, mine is 6A, 7A. Sorry, I looked at the wrong spot. Yes, mine. And behind mine,
6 and 7. What's on that?
I believe 6, 7 would be the 5th Street.
Those are, is they residences, garages? What's there?
Most likely residences.
Okay, and they
But
front, what do they front on?
The front on is 5th Street.
5th Street.
Modern Street, parallel with 5th Street.
Okay.
Yes, yes, it is. 6, 7 is 5th Street.
Do you know if there are 2 single-family homes? Is it a row home? What is located there?
I'm sorry, what's the question?
Lots 6 and 7, the ones behind your lot.
Yes,
Are they row homes? Or is it a single-family home? Do you know what is there?
I cannot say. I would think the row homes. I would think the row homes.
But you are not sure, am I correct? Are you certain of that, or?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Mr. Pfeiffer, would they have been provided with notice of the hearing?
Yes.
Any other questions from members of the board?
With the building on the inside, are there going to be exterior improvements?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I would apparently to meet the code, I would provide some windows, pointing bricks, and things like that. There will be, yes. It would be very nice.
How about the lot itself? Would you provide
Yes, I would.
line striping?
Yes, I would finishing, do something to the front, the driveway.
What would that something be? Is it repaving it, or?
Yes, paving, yes.
Do you lease out any of the space in front of the property right now where you show there's room for up to 10 cars?
I do not.
Do you know who's parking there at this time?
According to my tenant, that's his call, his friend's call.
But there are times when there have been many more cars there. Do you know who parks there?
I did talk to him. I was there. He said it belongs to one of some of his friends, and they're going to take the car away. He is about to move.
And there are cars inside the garage currently.
According to him, no, he has nothing but junk.
So it's just storage right now. Just junk.
Yes, the garage has no cars.
Okay.
Now the door to enter, it enters to the second floor. Is that correct?
The existing, did you ask the existing door?
Yes.
Yes, that door can go to the second floor. The existing setup now is that the entrance door from the first level, you go to the garage, and then there is a back door to the deck, and then from the deck you can go upstairs.
Well, how would that affect the new apartment that you're proposing?
There's a lot of things I have to do. I would actually build a stairway from the first floor to second floor. I would hope that they have separate entrance. There's no common hallway for each unit, so they're totally private. So the new entrance for the future unit should be on the right-hand side.
Any other questions from members of the board? Terry, did you have any? Questions from members of the audience? Okay. If not, did you have any additional testimony you wanted to introduce?
If I do make improvement, I will help the neighborhood. It is not the best neighborhood in the city. But if I make it into 2 units, that it will look much nicer than what it is now. And I do see the problem with this gigantic front driveway that is simply just invite parking, too many parking cars. So I will be able to help the problem that I have now.
Okay, thank you. Anyone in the audience wishing to introduce testimony? Seeing none, Gene, I'd like to go off the record. Can we go outside? My phone tells me one more time that the phone's not backed up. Jeez.
Great. What if they say no? What do I do? No good? No good for me? What if they say, then they
So they're deliberating now, they'll come back, they'll make their determination. Right. So if they find in your favor, then the next step would be to get the written decision, and then you can submit your application. Go in advance of receiving the written decision, but you assume all the risk if you do so.
Say that again, on what?
You would assume risk, so when they grant their decision, there's a 45-day period in which the solicitor will prepare the written decision. They usually take those 45 days. And then there's a 30-day appeal period. Now, there's nobody here objecting, so that gives you some level of confidence to proceed. So you can submit your application for permit. Let's assume they find it in your favor tonight. You can submit it tomorrow if you want.
What do you think? And I'm,
If they say no, then that's it. Now you can appeal that determination. Once you get the written decision, you can appeal it to the Court of Common Pleas.
not here.
No.
Okay, I guess I don't want that much. You just said no.
Oh, he figured just because he was gonna step out for this one and have my advances, he might as well just not come back.
But you cannot appeal to here, right? Zoning board says no, then that's no, right?
Yeah, so the way it's written in Pennsylvania law is if you appeal the zoning hearing board's determination, you appeal it to the Court of Common Pleas. So you would go to Northampton County.
Forget it. Next time, I'll make sure I get a lawyer. But that's reasonable, right? Why do they have to think that long?
For what?
Why do they have to think that delivery that long? It's not be good.
They are a separate quasi-judiciary body. They are appointed by the mayor. I'm not even in a position to kind of sway them. That's not my job. I just give them facts and
I suppose to sit here waiting for it, right?
Yeah, no, you did great.
Oh, thank you. What they give the guy parking relief, that is a big deal. Don't you think? 1823 single bedroom, one bedroom. You will absolutely need more than 23 parking spots. You know what I mean? If you have a family of two, you need 2 cars.
Sorry, Pete. I want you to fall over the top of me, yeah. All right, Gene, I'd like to go back on the record, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to deny the request because feel that insufficient evidence was presented to grant a dimensional variance.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Ms. Stone,
Yes, to deny.
Mr. Novatnik,
Yes.
Ms. Shea Gardner,
Yes.
Mr. Schneck,
Yes.
Mr. Fitzpatrick.
Yes. Unfortunately, your application's been denied. So you may want to talk to Mr. Pfeiffer further in terms of what would have to be illustrated to have a motion really considered. So, but regrettably, your motion is denied for tonight.
I accepted it. That's okay.
Okay, thank you.
That's what for me. Thank you.
Having no other business pending before the board tonight, this meeting is adjourned.